Now on BBC Radio 4, an affectionate portrait of a piano teacher who taught in Huddersfield, West Yorkshire, for over 40 years. Janet Beaumont. Janet recently had a music festival founded in her name. Her star pupils, Janet Meller and Edwina Wollstonecraft, take up the story in A Festival for Janet.
This is the start of my walk to my piano lesson. I'd be carrying my music case. I'd leave my parents' farm and go out the gate and just continue the journey up by the side of Beaumont Park towards Edwina's house. So this is Edwina's house. I'd walk up here and we'd then go on to Janet's house.
Sometimes we'd get a bit of practice in, wouldn't we? Because we wouldn't necessarily have done very much.
Yes, that's true.
And we'd be panicking about what we had to play. So we'd get a 10-minute practice in and then we'd set off.
Yes.
Yeah, we'd walk along the top and then back onto
Button-up Road and down Woodside Road. We were very rarely on time and we always had to give the impression that we'd run most of the way.
That's right, we'd run the last bit so we were out of breath and say, we're really sorry we're late. But she knew, didn't she? She knew.
She knew. She always knew, yeah. I'm Janet Meller and I studied with Janet from the age of about 6 through to when I went to university.
I'm Edwina Wollstonecraft and I studied with Janet from the age of 7 when I first moved to Huddersfield until I was 18.
She was always very vibrant and she was always smiling. She was a smiler, but at the same time you felt there was kind of calmness about her. No negativity about her at all. A very encouraging person.
I came to Janet after having had a previous piano teacher, and I remember my first lesson with Janet because I came in and played the way that the previous piano teacher had told me to play, and after I played this piece Janet just said, Edwina, it might help if when you press the next note you took your finger off the previous note, because I was holding all the notes down as I went through. She didn't seem very interested in putting you through boring technical exercises. Anything you learnt to do technically was always in the context of playing a piece of music. And that was her approach. Her approach was always, let's try and make this sing. That whole idea that the piano was a melody instrument. And I'm sure that was because she was a singer, first and foremost.
And for her, the music was a whole piece, and she made wonderful phrasing with her voice.
She would sit next to you and sit at the top of the piano and play the melody a couple of octaves higher. If she felt you were struggling with the shape or the style of the piece, she would teach by imitation and inspiration.
I am Edward Beaumont, Janet Beaumont's elder brother. Well, Janet was 4.5 years older than me. She was born on April the 1st. But after midday, I believe. Janet and I lived together at Beaumont Park for, 27 when I left the house. When I was at home, my bedroom was above the dining room, and I used to wake up in the morning before I went to school, and the piano would be playing, practising. I'd go to bed at night, and the piano would be going. Well, my father had basically been a not well child and spent a lot of time at home, and he was very keen on music, and he learnt to play all sorts of different instruments, but his basic instrument was a piano. But his music was the music of the time. He was not into classical music in any way. He used to sit down every morning when they used to have workers' playtime on and the music came on, and he'd sit at the piano and play to the radio. And he could play anything. Janet and I both started to learn music together, and we went to a Miss Lockwood on Ivy Street in Crossland Moor, and we both went and did the usual things, the scales and everything, and I hated it, and I don't think Janet was that keen. But no, I retired gracefully. In the dining room at home, by then she'd got her own grand piano, but it wasn't a full-size grand, and in that room there was the household radio, basically. which had an extension speaker wired through into the kitchen, and there was a switch on the side of the radio to switch it through, but you had to tune it in the dining room. So I would go in, tune the programme in, and she'd be playing, and she'd make some comment like turn that off or something, and start playing louder. So I would turn the volume up on the radio, and then she'd play louder, and I'd turn it up a bit more, and it usually ended up in a screaming match to each other, slamming doors in faces and things like that. But it all calmed down, and I think we learnt to live together after that.
It was a gorgeous room. There were French windows looking out onto the garden, and you walked in, the piano, baby grand, was on your left. And she had just next to the piano something I really coveted, one of those lovely cupboards, little drawers, and you'd pull the drawer out and the front of the drawer would drop down and you'd see all the music neatly aligned in there. It was absolutely fantastic, a beautiful piece of furniture, and that was a sort of treasure house of music.
There was a fireplace, and on the right-hand side there was a little chair which you had to really crouch down in, and that was your waiting spot while the person before you finished their lesson.
She would say, "This'll suit you." And I would never as a child know quite what that meant and didn't quite ask. But she had a sense that people had particular needs, a particular style, and she'd find pieces that you felt confident doing, and she always got that right.
And she seemed to pick up if you were losing interest or if you were coming up, on a plateau. And she'd select just the right piece to get you through that period. I certainly went through a phase when I wanted to give up when I was 10 years old, and I can remember going up into Beaumont Park Pond with my wellies, standing in Beaumont Park Pond and refusing to come out. My mother had to drag me out, and I felt so humiliated to go to my piano lesson in my Wellingtons.
Butternab Woods were over the top. There used to go to a place called Dean Nick, which was a stream in the bottom. 6 or 7 of us go there, dogs with us and everything. Dog used to go chasing rabbits, and we used to go and dam the stream and build dens with fern, lead bracken and such in the woods. I don't think we were supposed to be in there, but it didn't make any difference.
The other thing I remember was when you arrived was Benji, the little, what kind of dog was he? Highland Terrier. Who was a bit, what's his name?
Kim, I thought it was
Kim, sorry.
There was a Kim, wasn't there? Do you remember?
I rember Max, so she'd obviously
Oh,
moved
I've
on
got several,
dogs.
but they all looked the same, and they were all horrible.
Did you like them? I thought they were quite sweet, really.
And then her mum was always, that was the thing about her world, you just felt you go into this house, and there's Janet, and her mum in the background doing the cooking, making tea, making sandwiches.
Lamb sandwiches with mint sauce, and she used to share them with us in the lessons. And I remember her once complaining about her mum had pledged the piano keys and you couldn't play the piano because her mum had polished the ivories. Again, I think her mother gave her the opportunity to pursue the career, the first generation really, to have a career and have this home life.
As she got a bit older, she was quite a beauty, really, I suppose. She had a lot of suitors, and I believe, I don't know for a fact, because we didn't talk about that sort of thing, that she had a couple of proposals, but she turned them down. I don't know why she turned them down, whether she didn't want to get married or whether a career was more important or what, but she stayed single all her life, and I think she probably wanted it that way.
Music seemed to be the whole of her life, and her relationship with Irving and Joan Sheard. They used to go on holidays as a threesome. Joan Sheard, I believe, taught at Cay's College, where Janet was a head girl, and she was a very inspirational teacher around here. It was a very complete world, I think. I think neither ladies had children, and I suppose the music and all their pupils were part of their family. It was a family life for them.
She never went to music college. From leaving Cay's, she was expected to walk through all her GCEs or O-levels or whatever they were in those days, and she didn't, and nobody can understand why. I'm sure it must have just been nerves or something that caused it, because she was the sort of star pupil at Cay's. Then she started seriously with the music, and I think through Joan Sheard's guidance as much as anything else, she got all the letters over the years after that, because she was a fully qualified teacher then. As she grew older, she got very friendly with Joan Sheard, and they used to go off youth hostling. They went all round the country, took the bikes, and then went cycling and youth hostling. And she did that for years.
Duet lessons were just hilarious, weren't they? She just was always laughing, and she understood that whole piano duet thing because she'd had that piano duet relationship with Joan Sheard, hadn't she? And you almost felt as if she was somehow recreating it. Yes, it was such fun.
There was always Home Firth Festival. We used to do Home Firth regularly. We used to go to Blackpool. We actually did a residential at Blackpool. Do you remember when we stayed at a guest house overnight? Oh, they used to have a sight reading class at Blackpool, and she always thought that was a good idea to put us in for sight reading.
Give us a bit of stress. The Mrs. Sunderland was the big thing in Huddersfield,
yes,
wasn't it?
Was, yes. And I remember classes so big for the duets. They were all Janet and Joan's pupils, I think.
Janet was very keen on festivals and competitions, which is interesting because she didn't appear to be a particularly competitive person, but actually, deep down, she enjoyed that element of competition. She also thought it was a good opportunity just to play in public, often, which she obviously enjoyed too. I remember once seeing her sing in a competition, do you remember that? And she was actually really nervous.
Yes, her lip used to quiver. But I also remember what an amazing performer she was. I remember Paul Ideal saying that if you were anybody, you either studied with Janet Beaumont or you studied with Joan Sheard. Paul Ideal was one of Joan's prodigies.
All three of us used to compete together in music festivals, you see. I don't think Janet never beat me. I think Edwina beat me once. But it was always, he's here again. Well, can we beat him this time? And they tried. But at the end of the day, we're still all good friends. They're still wonderful lasses. And Janet thought the world of them. But from Janet Beaumont's point of view, Edwina and Janet Mellor were just invincible as piano duet players. They were fabulous, absolutely fabulous. There was nobody around here to touch them.
Remember when we practiced, we were terrible smokers, weren't we, in our early teens? We were appalling.
At the side.
We used to play and then we'd have a break and we'd have a cigarette on the end of the piano and it would burn down and you had to stop and have the next track.
We'd have cups of coffee and biscuit tins, yeah. That's all the part of
practising.
Part of practising, yes. I think she would have died if she'd seen us, actually. She was from a different world.
Yes.
Isn't she, Janet?
She's much more genteel than we were,
very
really.
much more genteel. But she did like to drink. We weren't together.
God. Are we going 6? You see, you have to.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm Olivia Whitworth. Sophia Riley. I'm Chloe Douthwaite. Songs from the shows 11 and under. We've done one song for class first, and then we're on our second one now.
I don't know, I am frightened. I know I'm being around here. The covered trees, the painted seas, the sound here. Yes, the world.
I'm Sherry Whittingham-Ball and I founded the Janet Beaumont Competitive Festival about 8 years ago in a response to a letter that was sent to school. It was from a brother, ex-Beaumont, asking that we would do something in her memory because she worked here for about 40 years, I believe. And we decided to reinstate a festival that was internal in the school, which she ran just for the pupils of the school when she worked here. So we decided to reinstate it but open it up to the town so that people who'd enjoyed her teaching and knew her would come back and enter their pupils, and that's how it started. We spoke to quite a lot of people who knew her before we did it, and a lot of people in the town said that she taught them and that she had this philosophy where she just wanted people to just have a go, enjoy music And that's the main emphasis of the festival. And if it goes a little bit wrong, then we aren't bothered really. We just sort of say, well done, and carry on, rather than it being too stiff and people being put off and perhaps not coming back. Last year it grew to over 900 competitors.
Trembling now, can't know how I missed you.
I'm Bob Orshnick. I'm the chairman. I initially started singing with the festival about 8 years ago as a competitor. All the other festivals set what you've got to do. Janet Beaumont, we don't. People have complete flexibility as long as it's appropriate to their age group. But they can come in something, if it falls flat, they've tried it. It gives them much more chance, and it's much more fun for the audience. Having performed in probably most of the festivals around here, I would say it's probably one of the most fun festivals I've ever come across.
By the wind seems that's true. These scrumptious, you're truly scrumptious.
After I left the Royal Northern, I was looking for work, and she was the director of music at St David's School and needed a piano teacher. And she basically appointed me, and the piano department, which started out with like 5 pupils, eventually got to 4 or 5 days' work. I realised just how organised she was. She was a fantastic teacher. She was not only the director of music at the school, she was also a form tutor. I think she was working in the pre-prep department at that time, and she did all the curriculum areas. Very clever woman. I think St David's at the time had some sort of a nature pool or something, and one of the children had got stuck in this, and it was like a slimy banking into the pool, and she was the person who actually went in there and dragged this pupil out. She used to talk about times when she turned up to concerts and she always had a stack of shoes in the back of her car. Like us really, isn't it? Stack of different types of shoes to go with whatever she was wearing, and she ended up on the concert platform with one black one and one brown one.
Don't you bring me down, ooh, today.
As teenagers, I don't think we had that much experience of hearing mature female voices, and looking back on it, I know when we studied A-level at school, I listened to recordings of Ferrier. Janet Beaumont's voice was also very special, and in intensity, and you were drawn into the performance. And again, this sort of completeness. She had an overall picture of exactly what she wanted to do, and possibly had she had the backing, she would have been a singing artist, a big name. I suspect there are recordings of her which would be very interesting to listen to.
Blow the wind southerly, southerly, southerly. Blow the wind southerly o'er the blue sea. They told me last night there were ships in the offing, and I hurried down to
This is a photo of Marsh Ladies Choir. Just after we'd won a festival, we wanted a photograph of the choir all together, you see. There she is. Yeah, she was very nice. That was before she had a stroke, I'm thinking. My name's Barbara Todd, and I knew Janet when I was in my teens through competing at festivals, and then she started singing. She used to sing solos, and I used to sometimes accompany her on the piano. And then later on in life, she decided she would like to join in singing the lighter kind of music. So she joined my choir, and she sang solos for me. She started sort of on the second row back, in about the centre. She was in the second. But she had a lovely big house, not a little pokey hole like this. And a grand piano. But as I say, she never looked down on folk like me. I was a musician to Janet and a friend.
My name's Pauline McNeil, and I knew Janet Beaumont through Marsh Ladies Choir. I do remember the moment she walked in. We really did feel privileged that this Janet Beaumont was going to join the choir. And then she came in with a beam on her face and she just fitted straight away. It was almost as if she knew that everything she was going to do for the choir had to be done in a short amount of years. Because right from the word go, she came onto the music committee. She even occasionally took rehearsals. And I have to say, our conductor, Paul Iredale, can be a bit whatever. And Janet would only just have to say a little something. And he'd laugh.
She had this inbuilt thing that you could always go to her and get inspiration. She was a wonderful, wonderful lady.
I can remember our conductor wasn't there. And Janet said, well, I'll see what I can do. And I can remember us doing one particular thing, and it was just Sing Joyous Bird. And I can hear her saying it now. Make that stream ripple.
She took early retirement because she'd had a little bit of trouble with angina and such, and I think there was one or two political things going on at St David's which wasn't to her liking, so she decided to retire early. And then, of course, not long after that, she had this first stroke, which was a big blow to her. But there again, she was amazing.
There were songs of praise on television on the Sunday evening, and they had it on in this ward. I think she was in a ward of 3 or 4 or something. And they were sitting there, and Janet sang all the songs of praise. You know how they come up. And she didn't even realise she'd done it.
She would say things backwards and then suddenly crack out laughing and say, I said that wrong, haven't I?
What came across, even through illness, is just this incredible strong will to live. Life was something that was just get out there and grab it. She was a person who learnt to write left-handed. She learnt to drive again, and she was determined that her illness was not going to interfere with her lifestyle. She continued to go to concerts, she continued to sing in the Huddersfield Singers, Marsh Ladies. She went on holidays. She was incredibly positive about life.
The number of things that would have hurt her more than anything else was the fact that she'd lost the use of one hand and couldn't play the piano. I think that would have been her first main thing that struck her. She said, it doesn't matter if I can't walk around, but I can sit at the piano and play, but she only had one hand. And she used to still play with the left hand.
Do you remember your birthday party?
And
she
came
was
for my
here.
40th, yes.
I remember her leaving. As she left, she walked out of your house here, and I remember her walking out and actually thinking, that's it. It was one of those weird feelings. She walked out of the house, and I remember feeling desolate, just for an instant in the party, and then the party carried on.
I remember getting the phone call from Irvin when she was in hospital, I think for the second time, and he was just totally distraught. And I remember going to the hospital to see her. Even while she was on a hospital bed, she was trying to pull through.
Along with Janet Mellor, we visited her on the night that she died, to actually come back and fight back from the first one, and then see them in a hospital bed, and awful, awful. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. She died about an hour and a half after Janet and I left. I just burst into tears. Burst into tears, because she really was a very, very wonderful, colourful, vibrant lady who would do anything for anybody. She was just superb.
Devastated, I suppose. It's sort of the end of an era.
That funeral was packed, absolutely packed. People from all walks of life. I mean, obviously the schools, the past pupils, the choirs. It was a sad occasion because she was too young to die.
We stood in the porch and shook hands with everybody. I don't think there's one single person who wasn't genuinely upset.
Huddersfield Singers did a memorial concert for her, and we were asked to put together a couple of duets, and I suppose that's the last time we played in public, really, isn't it? It was a happy event, actually. I don't remember it as being a sad event. Nothing was ever sad around Janet. It was a positive event. It was the music that she loved.
So, we've got 3 certificates to give out. Ashley came 3rd, Jessica came 2nd, and then Anne.
I got a 2nd. Well done, lovely character and well in tune. Good.
That's diction. They need to sort of handwriting out.
Very
musical.
Musical. Good performance. Charming and a good start for us. A little tense in your stance. Well done.
I came first. That group was amazing. Thank you.
We grew up at the right time. We were very, very lucky in Huddersfield that we had 2 extremely good piano teachers. That era was excellent.
I think she changed lives because she made you see what was possible, and she encouraged you to express yourself fully and take risks as well in performance and extend your experience of music. I mean, if it hadn't been for her teaching and encouragement, I don't think my friend Janet and I would ever have continued with music as adults.
Janet was very keen that young people should do music, that young mothers should do music, everybody should do music, because it gives you such a lot of joy.
Right, let's go.
Where is it?
It's down here, I think. Looks so different now, doesn't it?
Yes, so more overgrown. It's the same front door and the bell.
Yeah. Beautiful solid Yorkshire stone. It's absolutely gorgeous. How many hundreds of times did we come here? This makes me think of her opening the door.
Yeah. It's a bit sad, really, because she's not there anymore.
Certain bits of music she used to play quite a lot if I've got the radio on or in the car and things come on. Seeing a couple of girls on bicycles with haversacks on, things like that. Then you say, well, that reminds me of Janet. Oh, Janet would have done that. When I cleared the house, I've got a lot somewhere of all her classical CDs and tapes and everything, which I do listen to occasionally, if I'm in the mood.
A Festival for Janet had special contributions from Edwina Wollstonecraft, Janet Mellor and Edward Beaumont. The programme was produced by Janet's ex-pupil, Laura Parfitt. It was a unique production for BBC Radio 4.